Let f of x equal to negative 4x cubed plus 6x squared minus 5, the absolute minimum value of f over the closed interval negative 2 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 3 occurs at what x value? You have to choose one answer given from the options once you have solved the question given. You can also write this as an interval, so negative 2 comma 3, but make sure to use these brackets to signify a closed interval. Step 1 is to find f prime x, and the derivative of the given function is going to be negative 12x squared plus 12x. You can also write plus 0 to write the derivative of negative 5, but you don't need to write it because 0 doesn't signify anything. Step 2, to find the critical numbers or critical points. So to do this, we have to set the equation equal to 0. And in the calculator, input negative 12 for A, positive 12 for B, and 0 for C. x1 is equal to 1 and x2 is equal to 0. Step 3, use the equation given to us originally, not the derivative, not this one, and then input the different values of x into the equation. So in our case, that would be 1, 0, negative 2, and 3. Also, don't forget to make a table of your values 1, 0, negative 2, and 3. And you can use a calculator to do this equation, negative 3. So we just have negative 5 left. So over here is 51, but not least f of 3, which will be x is equal to 3. Now it's negative 59. Now input the f of x values for each equation. So when f of x was f of 1, we had negative 3. When x was equal to 0, we had negative 5. When x was equal to negative 2, our f of x was 51, positive 51, and when x was equal to 3, f of x was negative 59. For step 4, you have to analyze the given table. Now, to find the absolute minimum, all you have to do is see which is the smallest number out of the f of x values. So in our case, that would be negative 59, and then see what x values it has. So it's 3. And then in case if they ask you to find the f of x value itself, which they didn't ask over here, but in general, if it's ever asked, that you have to use one of these numbers. If they ask you what is the minimum f of x value itself, not at which x interval, but at which f of x value itself, then I would say negative 59. But since they're asking me for the value of x, I would say 3. Again, the same goes for the maximum. If they ask you for the value of x, it's negative 2. But if they ask you for the value of f of x itself, then it's 51. Because sometimes they will ask you for the x value, sometimes they will ask you for the f of x values for both minimum and maximum. So going back to our original question, we see that it's asking us for the minimum value of f over the closed interval. So the minimum or absolute minimum over here is 3. So let f of x is equal to negative 4x cubed plus 6x squared plus 1. What is the absolute minimum value of f over the closed interval negative 4 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 3. Notice here they're not asking you for the x value, and since they're not asking you for the x value, that automatically means they're asking you for the f of x value. So the f of x value over the minimum value itself. To find the derivative, again use the power rule for each term in the question. So negative 12x squared plus positive 12x, again you can write 0 if you want because the derivative of 1 is 0. Then for step 2, you have to find the critical points. So you can do this by setting the equation above equal to 0. Make sure that you input a is equal to negative 12, b is equal to positive 12, and c is equal to 0 because we don't have a value for c, then it's automatically 0. And now you should get the first critical point is equal to 1 and the second critical point, or x2, is equal to 0. Have to use the original equation, which again it's this one, negative 4x cubed plus 6x squared plus 1. You have to input these x values and also the interval ones, is equal to negative 4 times 1 raised to the power of 3 plus 6 times 1 raised to the power of 2 plus 1. Use a calculator to find the final answer for this equation, and the answer will be 3. So these two cancel out and you just have 1. And then for f of negative 4, which is given in the interval over here, you can write it as negative 4 times negative 4 raised to the power of 3 plus 6 times negative 4 raised to the power of 2 plus 1. Again, use a calculator to find the final answer for this equation. Now the answer is positive 353. F of positive 3, you have to put the same equation again, but instead of x, put 3. So negative 4 times 3 cubed plus 6 times 3 squared plus 1. Use a calculator to input these values and you get negative 53. Now we can begin constructing our table. On the left side we have the x values, on the right side we have the f of x values. So our x values will be 1, 0, negative 4 and positive 3. When x was equal to 1, f of x was equal to 3, positive 3. When x was equal to 0, f of x was equal to 1. When x was equal to negative 4, f of x was equal to positive 353. And when x was equal to 3, f of x was equal to negative 53. Now the question is asking us for the absolute minimum value of f over the closed interval. So you have to find the f of x absolute minimum value, not the value of x. And this brings us to our step 4, analyzing the diagram or the table. So f has the smallest number from the f of x values is negative 3, and when f of x is equal to negative 3, x is equal to positive 3. F has an absolute max at x is equal to, now the biggest f of x value is 353 and its corresponding x value is negative 4. But make sure you don't input negative 4 or positive 3 in the answers. So your answer cannot be option C. That would be negative 53. It will not be positive 3 because if it was asking you for the x value in the question, then your answer would have been 3. Yes, I have written 3 over here, but that is to signify at x is equal to 3. This is not asking you for the x value. No, it's not asking you for that. It is asking you for the f itself. And when it's asking for the f itself, it's f of x, and that would be negative 53. Write this as negative 3 comma 2. Use this bracket to signify a closed interval. And now step 1 is going to be to find the derivative or find f prime x. F prime x using the power rule will be 6x squared plus 6x minus 12. Now we have to find the critical points. And to do that, we have to set this equation to 0. Now in a calculator, input a is equal to 6, b is equal to 6, and c is equal to negative 12 to find your x1 and x2 values. And sometimes you can have a third value for a critical point, and that would be x3. And x1 is equal to 1, x2 is equal to negative 2. Step 3 is going to be using the original equation given to us, and that is this one, not the derivative. F of x is equal to 2x cubed plus 3x squared minus 12x plus 5, and inputting the x values of 1, negative 2, negative 3, and positive 2 into our equation 4 times because we have 4 values in total. So we're going to start off with f of 1. F of 1 is equal to negative 7. F of negative 2 is equal to positive 20. F of negative 3 is equal to oh, this is not 20, this is 25, and this is negative 2. F of negative 3 will be positive 14, and f of positive 2 will be positive 9. Construct a table of values for your x and f of x values. Is to analyze the table. So f has an absolute minimum at x is equal to find the absolute minimum, we have to find the smallest number from the f of x values and then check its corresponding x value. So in our case that would be negative 2. It's the smallest in all of these f of x values, and the corresponding x value is 1. And then f has an absolute max at x is equal to, again the same process as the minimum, but instead of the smallest, now you're searching for the largest f of x value, which over here would be 25, and the corresponding x value is negative 2. So they're asking you for the minimum value of h at what x value. So since asking for x value, you're not going to find the f of x value itself, you're going to find one of these. And minimum, so our minimum is 1, so at x is equal to 1. And again you can write this as negative 6 comma 2 and use this bracket to signify a closed interval. So h prime x is equal to 3x squared plus 12x. If you want, you can also write plus 0 because the derivative of 2 is 0. And now step 2 is to find the critical points or critical numbers. Set this equation equal to 0. You can solve this by using linear equation or by using a calculator, but if you're using a calculator, make sure to write plus 0. And all of this should equal to 0. Now if you're using a calculator, a should be 3, b should be 12, and c should be 0. x1 is equal to negative 4 and x2 is equal to 0. And step 3 is to use the equation given, the original one, not the derivative, not this one, and inserting our x values, which has to include our interval values as well, into our original equation. So h of x is equal to x cubed plus 6x squared plus 2. Starting off with negative 4, you should have negative 4 cubed plus 6 times negative 4 squared plus 2. Use a calculator to input this equation, and now you should get positive 34. When h of 0, or when x is equal to 0, you should have 0 raised to the power of 3 plus 6 times 0 raised to the power of 2 plus 2, which should give you 2, because any number times 0 is 0, and then 0 raised to any number is 0. So all we have left is 2. And now when x is equal to negative 6, we will get negative 6 cubed plus 6 times negative 6 squared plus 2, which is equal to positive 2. And lastly, when x is equal to positive 2, 2 cubed plus 6 times 2 squared plus 2, which should be equal to positive 34. Sometimes you can have the same values in your results. As you can see, not only are the 34s equal, but also the positive 2's. Now construct a table of values. With x on the left side and f of x on the right. So x can be negative 4, 0, negative 6, and positive 2. And when x is equal to negative 4, or actually I'm sorry, not f of x, h of x. And when x is equal to negative 4, h of x is equal to positive 34. When x is equal to 0, h of x is equal to positive 2. When x is equal to negative 6,